Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Broadband and Beyond series. We're so pleased to have the first webinar kicked off this morning, and we're also very happy to partner with the Institute of Emerging Issues. I'm Kirby Jordan. I'm the Vice President of Member Services and Communications at Roanoke Electric Cooperative, and we're so pleased to have you here with us today. As I mentioned, we've partnered with the Institute of Emerging Issues because we realized early on, probably back in February, that we both had very similar goals. We wanted to bring internet to you all, and we also wanted to bring you some education about the internet. And we decided we'd combine resources to bring a much stronger team and a much larger team to our area to talk about the subject of bringing broadband to rural North Carolina. We've decided that these sessions would replace our Straight Talk forums, which we used to host in the spring, which were our town hall meetings. And we had decided that we were going to do this new format of Broadband and Beyond, and we were going to do it live. But because of COVID, we decided we better take it virtual and bring this meeting to your home. We know many of you are home now with your kids, or you're home from work, working from home, and we thought we'd go ahead and roll out this series to give you this pertinent information. This is, like I said, the first of our 3 meetings. We also will have one May 12th and May 19th, and I'll give you more information at the end of the meeting about that. And during our webinar today, we encourage you to ask questions. There's a chat button at the bottom of the screen with a little conversation bubble. So if you've got something that you want to ask any of our guest speakers, please feel free to send the chat in, and we will try to address as many questions as we can. This session will also be recorded and will be posted on our website. So if you know of friends or family that missed this session, we encourage you to let them know about it, and please listen to the important messages that all our speakers have today. I also wanted to give you a quick update on our Roanoke Connect internet service. I know many of you have called or written in and have been concerned about where is our construction. And we did put a press release out, and we've been putting it on our websites, and we understand your frustrations. And our installations have been curtailed in recent months, and that's because we decided we were going to revamp our strategy. We've joined with a new construction engineering firm, and that's why the construction has been somewhat delayed. The good news is we're going to be starting installation again in October, and the new plan consists of fiber to the home. We feel like this was an important decision so we can bring you more products and services, and let you know the old installation was more of a wireless way to bring internet to you. So we feel much better about fiber to the home, but as you can imagine, it's quite an undertaking and a big challenge. So we appreciate your patience with us as we get through this. If you want to know more about it, we encourage you to go to roanokeconnect.com and see. We're going to be very soon posting maps showing our construction and the timeline, and so you can see where your area will be available. Again, we thank you for your patience, and for those that have signed up, we greatly appreciate it and that are enjoying the service. And if you're considering signing up for our broadband services, if you go ahead and register now, we will waive the installation fee until the end of June. So that's one good bit of news. This new plan is making us very excited because we will be able to provide faster and more reliable internet service, and we know that's what everyone needs. And for the meantime, during this COVID, we've realized how urgent this need is, and we have set up some hotspots across the area. We have about 20 hotspots throughout our regions, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that with Dr. Cunningham. But we did set these up because we know how important it is right now during these times. We know your children need to do their homework. We know that you need to apply for unemployment, or you need to apply for various benefits. We know that telemedicine is something that everybody needs at this point in time. And so we're encouraging you, again, go to our Roanoke Electric Cooperative website, and there's a list of all the hotspots across the region. And then you can simply drive your car up to the hotspot. You'll be in the safety of your own car, and then you can download whatever you need to. You can just join the wireless, and there's no password required. So we're excited to offer you that in the meantime. But we wanted you to really have some important information and some tools that you can use right now. So this is the purpose of the sessions today. We have, like I said, a great list of speakers, and we're very excited to give you all this information. Our first speaker this morning is the director of the Institute of Emerging Issues, and it's with my pleasure I'd like to introduce Leslie Bonney.
Thanks, Kirby, and thanks to all of you for joining us. As Kirby mentioned, I'm Leslie Bonney. I work for the Institute for Emerging Issues, which is based out of NC State. We've been around for 35 years now working on big emerging issues, and surely there is no bigger emerging issue than the one that we are facing right now. So we're glad to be partnering with Roanoke Electric on this series of workshops, which we hope are going to highlight some of the issues, but also some of the solutions that we need if we're going to be able to overcome the challenges that we have during time of COVID. This has been an issue that's been kicking around for a long time. In 1999, I was the executive director of a task force called the Rural Prosperity Task Force. And at the time, we said that without reliable high-speed broadband, rural North Carolina was going to struggle. And as part of that task force, we set up a thing called the Rural Internet Access Authority that was then followed by another organization that did the same thing called the ENC Commission. And now the work is done by a really well-staffed North Carolina Broadband Infrastructure Office. We have made slow progress over these years, and it was with that in mind that the Institute for Emerging Issues decided late last year to highlight this issue of digital inclusion as the topic that we thought was really important for the state of North Carolina. So earlier this year in February, we had a big conference in Raleigh in which we tried to make the case for why it mattered for people not just to have broadband in their home, but also to have subscriptions to broadband and devices that they could use. Then within a month, everyone discovered exactly how important an issue that really was, as all of us tried to face down how we got our kids online to take classes, how we did work to apply for unemployment benefits or to try to do our work from home, or how we got telehealth services. And all those things became really important. Our work at the Institute for Emerging Issues shifted. We set up a special part of our website that's at emergingissues.org that is dedicated to nothing but this issue that we're going to be talking about over the next 3 weeks. How do we get people the hardwire broadband that they need in order to be successful? How do we make sure people have subscriptions that they can afford? And how do we make sure people have the devices that they need? From the beginning, Roanoke Electric has stood up and said, this is an issue that they care about. So you're really blessed with the leadership that you have from Roanoke Electric in your area. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to look at what it takes to get this done and the various strategies that we can use in order to be successful. Our leader on this effort is Maggie Woods, and she'll be leading for the next 3 weeks, but we're honored to have her and some great guests with her over the next 3 weeks, starting now. Maggie?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leslie. Thanks for the introduction, and a huge thank you to Roanoke Electric for this partnership. Really excited to be with all of you today and for this lineup of guest speakers that we have. Today, we're going to be talking about a really important issue, and that's accessing free and low-cost internet as well as devices. And when I say devices, I mean anything that can connect to the internet that's not a smartphone. So that could be a tablet, a laptop, a computer. And I think Leslie did a great job of highlighting why this is an important issue today. We know that COVID-19 has shown a spotlight on the digital divide. And when I say digital divide, I mean those who have internet, have devices, and know how to use them, and that those who don't. So we're all in our homes right now, stuck in our homes. And if you don't have the internet, you can't do your homework. You can't, you can't do your homework. You can't apply for a job or do your job remotely. And so this was a challenge before the pandemic, and it's an enormous challenge now. It's even a crisis right now. So today we're going to talk about this issue from a variety of lenses. We're going to hear from the state level, what's happening to provide free and low-cost internet to people around the state and give you some tools for how to access that. We'll also talk about what organizations are providing free and low-cost devices and some policies that are coming down from the General Assembly. And then we're going to explore this from a local context. We have some leadership from Halifax County Schools, and they'll be talking about how they are supporting children and families right now to connect to the internet and to connect to devices. But before we do that, I did want to share some statistics, and I'm hoping we could get the slide that highlights statistics up on the screen so that we can share that with all of you. But I'm going to share some statistics about where we were before the pandemic hit, just so that we're all on the same page and speaking the same language. So before the pandemic arrived, about 25% of people lacked access to a desktop or laptop. These are households in North Carolina that lacked access to a desktop or laptop. Only about 9% of people had access through a smartphone. That was the only way they were connecting to the internet. And the reason why I highlight those who only had a smartphone to connect to the internet is because it's really hard to do your homework on a smartphone. It's hard to apply for a job on a smartphone or apply for unemployment benefits. All the things that people need right now, it's hard to do on a smartphone. So it is an important statistic to measure, though I will say we're going to hear some innovative techniques from Halifax County Schools who are providing remote learning through smartphones right now. About 5.2 North Carolinians lacked access to broadband, and I'll say this is a pretty flawed figure. It comes from the FCC. It basically counts any household that in a census block that has access. It counts the whole census block as having access. I'm going to show you a map in just a moment that gives you a better sense of where gaps in access are in North Carolina. We had about 22% of North Carolinians who didn't subscribe to any kind of internet, whether that was dial-up internet or less. And then about 40% of North Carolinians didn't subscribe to broadband. And so that's what we call high-speed internet at a 25/3 up-down speed. We don't need to get into the technicalities, but only about 60% of North Carolinians had access and were subscribing to high-speed internet before the pandemic arrived. So this kind of gives a sense of what the problem was. There were clear gaps in who has devices and who has internet before we all suddenly needed internet to do anything in our lives. So if we could move to the next slide, I just want to highlight this map that shows underserved census tracts. I think there should be, there we go, underserved census tracts in North Carolina who don't have clear access to the internet. So this kind of orangey pink color highlights where there are underserved census tracts when it comes to internet access. And you can see about half the state is highlighted, and where many of you are joining us from. So in northeastern North Carolina, there are huge swaths of your area that don't have access to the internet. And I know this is something that Roanoke Electric with Roanoke Connects is trying to address. It's something that one of our guest speakers from the broadband infrastructure is trying to address as well. And speaking of our guest speakers, I think now is the moment to start introducing them. So we're so thrilled to have 3 guest speakers today. We have Amy Huffman, who's the Digital Inclusion and Policy Manager at the Broadband Infrastructure Office, part of the Department of Information Technology. We have Dr. Eric Cunningham, Superintendent of Halifax County Schools, and Dr. Tarana Battle, Assistant Superintendent of Halifax County Schools. We're so excited to have all of you here today. And just as a reminder, if you have any questions for our panelists, please chat in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat even as I ask questions. So we definitely want to be able to address any questions or concerns that you have. And Amy, let's start with you. You work at the Broadband Infrastructure Office. Could you tell us a little bit more about that office and what your mission is there?
Yes, and thank you both to you, Maggie and Leslie and Kirby and Roanoke Electric for having me here today. It's a real pleasure and honor to be with all of you to talk about what we talk about every day, closing the digital divide in North Carolina. So that is our mission at the Broadband Infrastructure Office. It's our vision that every North Carolinian would have access to affordable high-speed broadband anywhere at any time. And we've been working diligently for several years. And as Leslie noted, our organization has a long history and deep roots in this state to close the digital divide. And we do that through a mix of policy programs and tools. And those range from, we have some technical assistance directors who some of you may have met and interacted with at some point. There are boots on the ground. They help communities with planning and things of that nature. We work with digital inclusion organizations who provide skills or technologies to folks across the state. And then we have a grant program as well that provides funding to internet service providers who extend service to unserved areas.
That's great. And Amy, we're here today because people are really worried about getting access to the internet. And particularly being able to afford it. We know that one of the reasons why people might not subscribe is because they can't afford the internet or they don't have a device that connects. So can you talk a little bit about if people are looking for free or low cost internet, how they might find that information and what's been the response from internet service providers in providing help during this time?
Absolutely. So we've built a tool just for this purpose. It's on our website, which is ncbroadband.gov, and we'll make sure to drop that in the chat. The tool is a searchable map, and we've gotten responses from internet service providers across the state, several of which are introducing temporary low-cost offers. Oh, that's the map right there. Several of which are offering low-cost offers right now in response to this crisis, or like Roanoke Connect are setting up hotspots in the community where folks can drive in and download or upload information safely in their cars and locations. And so we've mapped that across the state, and anyone can go to the map and insert their address and find either the low-cost offer that's available to them or free offer, or find the closest hotspot where they can go and receive access during this time.
That's great, Amy. And it really is a great interactive tool. I've put in my zip code and looked for the closest Wi-Fi hotspots and shared it with friends who are looking for internet right now. So many of you may be connecting to us via the internet. You might have internet at home, but for people you know in your lives, this is a great tool. One thing I'll ask is, what about devices? What if you need a computer or a laptop right now, and in order to work from home or to do your homework or connect through telehealth? What options do people have, Amy? Are there organizations that are providing that information?
There are. We have two wonderful, what we call device refurbishers in North Carolina. And that just means that these organizations take used desktops or laptops, and then they refurbish them, and they either sell them at a very low cost or donate them to families that need them. One is called Cramden, Kramden, and it's in the Research Triangle area. And then the other is called E2D, which stands for Eliminate the Digital Divide, and they're in Charlotte. And my best recommendation would be to contact either of them and either procure, if they have devices ready, procure one from them, or get on their wait list if they have a wait list.
Yeah. I know they've been overrun at the moment because a lot of people need devices right now. So they are looking for donations. Amy, do you have any advice for people who might represent businesses who might be able to donate to either of these two organizations?
Absolutely. And really, these folks are heroes because they are still refurbishing and running during this time, even when it's they are still working and trying to provide and procure these devices to folks, even amidst a pandemic. So we call them our local heroes. But yes, if you have a local business or work for an organization, you can donate your devices to these two wonderful organizations, and they would happily take them. And for the things that can be refurbished, refurbish those. And if they can't, they'll go ahead and recycle it for you. And so we'd be happy to put you in touch with them, to contact them, and donate your devices to them.
Great. That's great news. What about hotspots? We hear a lot about hotspots these days. Can you define what a personal hotspot is, and if there are any organizations or ways that people might be able to utilize a hotspot right now?
Absolutely. So a personal hotspot is just it's a small device like your phone. It's about the size of a smartphone, and it runs on a cellular network. So it runs on either Sprint or AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, or US Cellular. And it basically, you can turn it on, and then the devices of your laptops, tablets, et cetera, in your household can connect to the internet through that. Some of these hotspots do have data limits, some don't. It just depends on the hotspot, and it depends on the contract. If you're looking to procure one, some of the libraries in your area may have one, and if they don't have one now, they may in the near future. So that's one avenue. Some of your schools may have some down the road in the near future and be sending those home with students. That's a possibility. You can always contact your smartphone carrier. So if you have AT&T or Verizon, you can contact them and ask if you can turn your personal device into a smart hotspot at this time. During this time, some of the carriers are waiving those fees for that. And then we are, as a state, looking into ways to procure hotspots for schools, students, and folks across the state. So those things will be coming down the line. In addition, the state is procuring hotspots that are a bit larger and heavier duty in scope, and putting those, as we speak, on school buses that are delivering meals to families across the state. And so several of the counties in your region will be receiving those, and those buses will be traveling around your communities, and you can connect to the internet via those.
Great. And we're going to be hearing a little bit more from our leaders in Halifax County School District to talk about other Wi-Fi hotspots that are available and are online for people who need them. So thank you for that, Amy. All sorts of things are changing right now in terms of policies coming down the line and funding through stimulus packages. Could you talk a little bit about what policies you think it's important for people to know about right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So through the third federal stimulus package in the CARES Act, there's a good bit of money that is going down to states in different avenues that can be leveraged to close the digital divide. So just one example is I think $50 million came from the CARES package that is going to be directed to state libraries, and state libraries will then assist local libraries in figuring out ways to use that funding to close the digital divide. So we do expect some things to be, some resources to be made to local communities through libraries in the near future. At the state level, there's some funding that's being made available both through the CARES Act to schools and things of that nature to procure hotspots, or that is eligible to procure hotspots or devices. And in addition, the General Assembly awarded our office an additional $9 million to go towards our GREAT grant funding, which is the Growing Rural Economies with Access to Technology program. And that is our funding that goes to providers to extend service. And we're in the middle of an award round right now. We had $15 million. This will give us an additional $9 million to give out more awards to folks to get more service out there.
That's really great news. And as a reminder, if people do have questions, please put them in the chat. Amy, you mentioned some funding coming down the line for education. This just came out yesterday, so this is pretty breaking. It looks like there'll be about $1 million going to the Department of Public Instruction for increased connectivity on school buses. So what you were talking about, having Wi-Fi hotspots on school buses that can get Wi-Fi to people within usually about half a mile, I believe. Another $5 million to the Department of Public Instruction for devices, so computers, Chromebooks, tablets, things that school districts desperately need to make sure that all students have a device that can connect to the internet. And it looks like this morning, 11 million potentially for connectivity for students, either in the community or home internet. A lot still needs to be teased out of what this means. We don't know what the allocations are yet. So are these funds going to be distributed evenly across the state or not? So a lot of questions still to come, but definitely funding coming down the line.
Which is great. Funding is half the battle. So we're glad to see some funding put behind these efforts.
Absolutely. I feel like, Amy, so much of your job before this pandemic was trying to tell the story of why internet and digital inclusion was important, and that has been done for you now.
Absolutely. I no longer need to tell people why it's important. It's excruciatingly clear to everyone why this is necessary for us to thrive in the 21st century.
Right. Any other thoughts or something that you'd want to add to our discussion before we move on to our local leaders?
No, I just want to say again, thank you for having us, and thank you for the really wonderful partnership. And I do want to also note to any of you that are local on the phone that you have a stellar organization in Roanoke Electric. They are a real pioneer in making sure that broadband will be available to their community in North Carolina. Right now, they're really just doing some really great work, and we're grateful to partner with them as well, and thankful for their work in your communities. So that's about it.
I second that. Thanks so much, Amy. Amy's going to stay on the line just in case there are other questions. And Amy, could you add in the link to the map on the chat as well?
I'd be happy to.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now I'm pleased to move us to our two local leaders in the Halifax County school system, Dr. Cunningham and Dr. Battle. Good morning. I'm hoping that the two of you could start by just giving us a snapshot of Halifax County schools for people who may not be alumni or currently attending, and just tell us how the transition has been to remote learning.
Certainly, Maggie. First, big shout out to Maggie, Leslie, Kirby, and Amy. Amy, we have been using Cramden.org for those reverb computers. Thank you, and it's good to see a face behind the resource.
Yes,
thank you very much. And it's a much needed resource that we have been using in Halifax County Schools for quite some time. Halifax County Schools is best described as rural, as a very rural, geographically challenged area. We're about 725 square miles, and we're divided into three public school districts. And two public charter districts and one private school. So for about 8,000 kids, there are about 6 different places one could choose to obtain their education. Halifax County is a tier 1 county, which means, you know, we have a dearth of resources and access to the internet. This pretty much encapsulates my understanding of this area. I was hired as the superintendent of Halifax County Schools in 2016. And upon my arrival, I got on the bus and I wanted to drive around our county to see our children for myself. The first day on that bus that morning, we had to get on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning. Right around the time the sun was coming up, we stopped, we passed a house, and that house, and I saw one woman doing this. at a well. I looked at the bus driver, right, Dr. Battle, and said, that's nice. She has good spring water coming in. Nothing wrong with that. I'm from Alabama. We did that in the 70s. Bus driver looked back at me and said, nah, she doesn't have water in the house. I sat down. I go a couple of miles up the road. We pick up our next load, our couple of kids, and the woman opened the door and the hinges were literally off the door. At that, and then I'm receiving the child, but at that time, I have to admit to everyone, tears were running down my face. I had no idea because I had to remove the blinders that were around my eyes. In my world, we all had these things. So for the past 3 years, we have been building up an infrastructure in Halifax County schools to grow our children to proficiency, recognizing that we have waves all around us. And then COVID hits. So we've spent 3 years building up our backbone, and now we're hit with COVID, which really put a strain on all the resources that we had accumulated over the past 40 months. We had to ask our teachers to change on the dime on March 16th and go to remote learning in a place where we just do not have the resources. In our mission statement, we talk about extending the partnerships, and we knew we would need help here in order to have some type of remote learning in Halifax County schools. And that led us to this partnership that we're proud to talk about today.
So tell us about that partnership and how that has helped you enable remote learning and get that kicked off. All of a sudden, all of us around the state are doing remote learning. So yes. Tell us about the partnership and how that's going.
No problem. And Dr. Battle, you just chime in. Okay. So March 16th, we're just running around and I'm looking at Dr. Battle and saying, how are we going to do this remote learning? We're going to have to do a blended learning model and send out hard packets, these learning packets, and we had to send out about 6,000 of those. Am I right, Dr. Battle? That's right. 6,000 learning packets, but yet we also needed to teach kids online. And that's when we started to see that access was a problem here. Yes. We have an internet desert throughout Halifax County because of the geography and the number of residents that are here. We're really spread out. So we have this access issue, and it started popping up all over the county. And access can be defined in Halifax 2 ways. We have only 50% of our families have computers in the house. Okay, so that means I have in 2,300 kids. If you use 15, you split that in half. That's 1,300 kids that don't have access, don't have a computer in the house. And then the other piece was you can have a Wi-Fi ready device with no internet that's available to you. So you're always searching for free Wi-Fi so you can have access to the internet. And we're starting to see that there was a big, giant need to give people a device as well as access. And so we're riding down the road one day and we see 2 of your trucks in our parking lot. And so I go, well, why is Roanoke Electric here? We hope they're not cutting off our lights. and so then Mr. Curtis Wynn called, and that's when he explained to us that he is willing to help us light up our parking lots and give access to our constituents for the internet. And that began this wonderful journey that we're on today.
So So when that happened, it brought up a light bulb for us, because what was happening in Halifax, what I like to pride Halifax on is we're resilient. And so a lot of times you have pieces in place and you don't recognize it until you're faced with something like COVID-19. And so what happened, we already had the data that we knew how many of our families actually had access to the internet and how many of them actually had an end device outside of the support from the school. And so when we did that, we were already doing some things as it related to digital teaching and learning, but this forced us to look at it more forcefully head on. And so with that, we had to kind of put it on stimulus with the Google Classroom, with the blended learning pieces. And I think it was March 16th when we were writing that, but the governor made the declaration on the 13th. When we came on the 13th, I think it was a Saturday.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Cunningham and I got together, and I kid with Dr. Cunningham all the time because he's a visionary. And so what he brings to the table, he brought the oomph that Halifax needed because he brought the experience from outside. The experience I bring, I'm internal. I'm a product of Halifax County Schools. So when we merge those two things together, it's an awesome force. And so when we were able to do that, we brought our teachers in, we talked with them about what our needs were, we looked at our data from our families, and we knew that we had to bridge that gap. And so with the network and partnership that Dr. Cunningham has fostered for us, it brought in the perfect connection with Roanoke Connect, because what it allowed us to do is to tap into that resource. Okay, teachers, we have to do things differently. You do this all the time. We got this. But what we had to do was to do it through a different lens and to let our teachers know we believe in you. This is our opportunity to reclaim our stake in America. Yeah. This is our time to do that. And so teachers were able to show what they know in terms of Google Classroom, in terms of Zoom, in terms of Microsoft Teams. We were able to bring all of those resources together into one melting pot so that we could bring forth teaching and learning for our students. Because if you know about Halifax, what you already know is that our students were already behind. We're tier 1 district, and we had students who were behind in terms of curriculum and instruction as it relates to that. And so that was already a gap that we were facing, but we were filling in those gaps. But now we're faced with this. And so what we said to our teachers, let's take this situation and let's show people that we can make lemonade out of this. And so that's what we did with our teaching and learning. We did the instructional packets. Dr. Cunningham got together with the team on the 16th. The governor declared it on the 13th. On the 16th, we were one of the first districts in this Northeast region to respond. And we responded based on our strategic plan. Number 1, health and safety. So we did our health and wellness piece. And so we had our plan and we had our buses on the road.
On the road.
We had our buses running for 5 days a week at that particular time. And we looked at health and wellness. So we did the food piece first. We got that comfortable. Yeah. The community responded. Then by that Wednesday, we were able to ease in the instructional packets because we already knew from the data that we had a gap. So not all of our houses were ready to receive that internet piece just yet. So we had to ease that in. So we did the instructional packets 100%. Then we eased in the internet piece with the teachers and the Google Classroom, which gave us some time to kind of get them together. We need some exemplars, some trailblazers right now. Come to the surface. Show us what a digital lesson would look like. And so we had that with our teachers, and it caught on. It caught on. And so I'm very thankful for the relationship, because when you talked about the truck that had shown up on that day, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to bridge the gap, that really made a connection for us because we're very rural. For an example, in the Hollister community, tell them about the Hollister community.
The Hollister community is just a vast area that is a beautiful area with working parents, but yet it's an internet desert.
Right.
It's just an internet connectivity hasn't reached that far out. But it's a wonderful, beautiful people, beautiful area, but just not enough to compel people to invest in that broadband in that area.
So
you can tell that you guys are such a fabulous team, working on the vision and the details, and you're even social distancing, sitting next to each other right now. So I commend you. So you mentioned this Park and Learn program using the Wi-Fi hotspots. Could you talk a little bit more about what the Park and Learn program is and how it's providing or filling in some of those gaps, and who is using it?
Okay, I will. The initiative was completed on April 3rd. So we had the Roanoke Connect Park and Learn. The trucks were going out to the 5 sites that are displayed now, and it was completed on April 3rd. That impacts 7 of our 11 rural schools. Look at the reach. 7, that's the penetration. 7 of the 11 schools have been penetrated. And as you have said, that gives us a wide reach. We're now, with the Park and Learn opportunity, we're hearing that the internet is so strong, it's reaching across the street to people's homes.
Yes.
And they're able to hit our Wi-Fi, which is wonderful, which is absolutely wonderful. So it impacts 7 of 11 schools. It's free Wi-Fi for student learning. Wi-Fi access is available in the front parking lots of our school, of our 7 schools, of our schools. Our internet access is available from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And it's not password protected. But the access is locked down and content is filtered. We do have a filter on it, and you can understand why. And it's monitored 24/7.
So when you think about that and you think from the instructional lens, that's a goldmine for teachers, especially when you're trying to do the teaching and learning piece and you're out in the remote learning areas, in the rural areas. So what that affords us the opportunity to do, when we did our original survey with students, we found out they had access to computers. About 50% of them had access to computers at home. So we knew that we could come up with a plan with our existing infrastructure in terms of end devices that we had at our disposal at the school level. We just needed a distribution plan for that. So we executed that plan. But the next hurdle was, how do we get those devices to hook to the internet? And so that's when the information about the Park and Learn became available. That really helped us to connect with students that we otherwise would not get an opportunity to connect with. So that posed a good problem for us because I am also a parent of 2 kids that are in school right now. And so I was on the front line, able to do some troubleshooting to work through some things. For an example, I have a high schooler and I have an elementary schooler, and both of their teachers wanted to do the digital learning piece at the same time. So in my mind as a parent, I had to look at the complexity of the material. I had to look at my bandwidth, my buffering issues, and those kinds of things. And so my high schooler took the computer. My elementary schooler, she took the cell phone. Now, in Halifax County, because we were just dealing with things as it is, when you use a cell phone, you have to think about your data package. All of those other pieces became an issue. So we decided that we would hook to the school's Wi-Fi, which would prevent me from having to use all of that data piece with that. And she could access learning online with her teacher. With that, it forced the teacher to find another way to do formative assessment. Who are the students that know and who are the students that don't know? So for an example, with my elementary schooler who was using the cell phone, they started using what we call the reactions or the emoticons that you have on the computer to say, thumbs up, yes, I got it.
Right.
Somewhat,
Right.
I don't have it. We need to redo that again. And that's just the resiliency of kids. You know, they can take lemon and make lemonade, and you could see how her, her dendrites, they were just working. They was just working. And so that really gave the teacher the extra inspiration that she needed, but it also allowed my high schoolers to use the computer so she could download the images and the graphics and the things that she needed as well. So it helped us because we were on the front line, and I could take that information and bring it back to our team here so that we could respond accordingly based on the needs of our stakeholders.
Dr. Battle, you really highlighted one of the major challenges with only having a cell phone as your one connection to the internet, and that's data limits. It's a major challenge, and so being able to bring that cell phone to one of these Park and Learn and parking lots and connect to the internet is one way around that. Are you seeing, it's really interesting to me how innovative you've been with remote learning, particularly connecting to cell phones. Can you talk a little bit about other ways that you're innovating with your remote learning and maybe what software you're using and what are you learning right now?
Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about the technical side. When we were first approached by by Roanoke Connect, the first thought I was thinking in Halifax as a superintendent, I can't maintain this.
Yeah.
I can't fix it if it breaks down. It's a great gesture, but is it sustainable?
Right.
But check out what Roanoke Connect did. I mean, this is great, right?
Okay.
They did the labor.
Uh-huh.
They put a category 6 internet cable, which is durable and strong. And then they put it all in a weatherproof box to protect the access points from weather, dust, and insects. So that was proactivity. They didn't just throw it in there, they left it in there properly so it's sustainable and it can last a very long time. Now, once we check that off, that we didn't take a good gesture to create a problem that's not sustainable, then we focused on what to do with it.
And so when we look at what to do with it, we had several innovative ideas that came about as a result of that. So we knew from our training that we wanted to focus on the Fabulous Five. And everybody in education knows what they are. That's phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension. We know that in Halifax County, we wanted to build on that. So we wanted our teachers to come up with activities and lessons to support that. And so the teachers would do things like they would use Google Classroom. That's one entity that they would use, Google Classroom. And what the teachers would do is they would generate the lessons, and then they would put the lessons up on display. And then the kids could use their devices to say A, B, C, or D. In an instant moment, that let the teacher know, okay, this student I need to go back and redo this part. So it started with the customization piece. And these things just kind of all emerged. And this was kind of things that we do in the regular classroom as well, but now we're doing it on a digital stage. And so that's what it gave the teachers the opportunity to do. It also allowed the teachers to have that visual aspect in terms of vocabulary, because we wanted to build the students' vocabulary up. So they would see a word, okay? Then she might have a video clip. For an example, I use one. My daughter, she's in the first grade, adjectives, okay? They were doing adjectives. So the teacher would talk about adjectives. What is an adjective? Okay, so they told her the what. Then she put on a video. So then you know how the kids that like to do the bodily kinesthetic things with adjectives. So it would resonate with her. She could remember that. Okay, the red car, those kinds of things. And so different things like that, very innovative. But those are some of the things that our teachers are doing here. I've seen teachers across the state doing the same kinds of things, but it helps with the routines that students are accustomed to, the structure that they need, and it ties back to the Fabulous Five, so that we're working on those common skill deficits that students have that we can fill in during this time.
Also, those videos get kids moving and exercising at this time when they're stuck at home. So that's a positive as well. Looking at the time, we should be wrapping things up a little bit, but I'll offer both of you any closing comments that you have, or anything that we didn't discuss in this discussion that you think is really important that our listeners learn about.
Partnerships work.
Yes. Thank you.
That's what this is all about. I mean, today you connected me with Amy, so I have a face and a name behind Camden.
Yes.
And that we're leaning on for the devices. And now we have devices, and now we have connection. So that's the total package, but it will not happen without partnerships. So a big shout out to all of you for thinking of Halifax County Schools, because we're extremely grateful that you provided so many resources here. We would not be able to do this without partnerships. So to those out there in virtual land, partnerships work, and we're an example of it.
That's a great way. It's a great way to end this discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Cunningham, Dr. Battle. Thank you so much, Amy. I'm going to turn it back over to Leslie Boney to provide a quick summary of what we heard today. And so off to you, Leslie.
All right, this is going to be really quick. First, the North Carolina Broadband Infrastructure Office is great and awesome. On their website, which you had a link to earlier, and you can see in the recording, they have at least 2 great resources. They have all sorts of great information, but one is a map of hotspots that you can search by your specific address, find out what's out there, what kind of availability there is for cheap devices or low-cost connectivity. Second, there are links to refurbishers that are out there, people who have those devices and are making those available. The hotspots information is evolving every day, but there are options through libraries, through Roanoke Electric, and through the schools. And as Maggie mentioned a little bit earlier, there's new funding that really the governor just signed into law yesterday about new funding for infrastructure, an additional $9 million for the GREAT program that's already up and running in the Roanoke Electric area, new hotspots funding, new funding for devices. So all those things worth keeping an eye on as they funnel out throughout the state to see what portion of that is coming to the northeastern part of North Carolina. Halifax County Schools, after a mad scramble on March 16th, put together the perfect combination of fire and ice. At least that's what I would call them. The superintendent and Dr. Battle working together to help address the internet desert that large parts of Halifax County have and light up parking lots quickly, creating this Park and Learn program that I think people all across the state are going to be excited to hear about. Teachers getting creative and doing what teachers do, and eventually getting these Park and Learns out to 7 out of 11 places of schools in the county. I hope going forward that you will share this. One of the challenges of lack of connectivity is the difficulty sharing things and participating in these webinars. So if you can share the link to this with someone, they can get to a hotspot and watch it at a later time. If you're interested in more information about digital inclusion and getting online in North Carolina, you can go to our website, emergingissues.org, or the great and wonderful broadband, state broadband office website as well. We would encourage you to join us again next week. Tell your friends about it. We'd encourage you to join us through the chat function. That's at the lower part of your toolbar. It looks like a little conversation box. Please find a way to participate so that we can answer the specific questions that you have. This is a service that Roanoke Electric has arranged for you. We thank them for doing that. We thank them for letting us participate. We thank Amy Huffman for participating. We thank Dr. Cunningham and Dr. Battle for being with us today. So I think I'm going to toss it back to Kirby to wrap it up.
Thank you, Leslie. You pretty much summed up everything, and we do really appreciate everyone's time and energy to this broadcast. We're excited to be a part of the community, and like Dr. Cunningham said, it's all about partnerships, and Roanoke Electric and Roanoke Connect want to be there for you. And we also know that communication is key during this time. So like we said, if you could help spread the word to your friends and family, let them know about the recording. We want to reach as many people as possible and help out. And coming together as community is the #1 goal. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much.